Welcome to the Leadership Lounge. It's great to have you here with us. I'm delighted to have 4 guests here today from the Spirit Federation. And we're going to be looking today and really exploring about creating a people-centred culture. So let me introduce them to you. It's really great. Joining me today, I have Colette Firth, Executive Head of the Spirit Federation. I've got Ross Colley. Great to have you here, Ross, Head of School at Winyates. Alice, who's a teacher at St John's, and Connor, you are head of school 1 day a week, assistant head. There's a whole range of things you do, and you teach as a class teacher, and you're all part of the Spirit Federation, which has St John's, Winyates, Barnock, and Paston Ridings. And you work together as a collective group. And I've asked you to join me in, I've joined you in your leadership lounge as opposed to my normal lounge, just to really explore this people-centred culture. Because I see that, having worked with you over the last couple of years, I really see you working towards that, really having that at the core of kind of what you have to do. So welcome to your leadership lounge as we kind of explore this together. So just to help our listeners, I know all 4 of you quite well, but our listeners don't. So tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of how you became part of the Spirit Federation. So Colette, let's start with you.
So I've been here 22 years at St John's actually, and I started as a deputy head and quite quickly moved into a headship. So I think I was 31 when I became the head here. Mm-hmm. So I really had no idea what I was doing, just winging it. And then sort of bit by bit, people have said, oh, could you just pick up that school down the road as well? And initially my answer is always no. And then I think, oh, okay, yeah, I can do that. So we picked up Winyates, and then 5 years ago we picked up Barnock, and then just a year ago we picked up Paston Riding. So that kind of, we just keep growing and kind of taking our time to think about what's next for us, really.
Yeah, and so you were right at the start of it, and St John's was where you started, but it's grown now, and you've now named yourself Spirit as a federation.
Yeah, and Spirit was really important, I think, because it's got 2 meanings, I think. Mm-hmm. So it has a really spiritual meaning, because as a church school, it was really important that we had some kind of spiritual essence to it. Yeah. But also spirit to me means you've got spirit. Yeah. You've got that kind of big ambition, and you've got something that's going to drive you. So we thought it kind of appealed to everybody, and it appeals to me in lots of different ways. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Great. Well, thank you for letting us come in and explore this today with you. Let's move on to Alice. So Alice, you're a class teacher at St John's, but tell us a little bit about you and how you became part of this federation.
Well, I started my journey with Teach First. I did a graduate scheme, and I really believed with their mission that every child should be able to fulfil their potential. And I remember when they placed me at St John's, the girl called me up and she said, I am so excited to send you to this school. I know that your personality is just going to match what they do and what they're about. And I was thinking, she doesn't even know me that well. How does she know this? And actually, I look back and I'm so thankful that I have been placed with this school. So I'm part of the English team now. I'm geography lead, and hopefully looking to expand my leadership in the future.
Yeah, great. So for those who listening that aren't necessarily part of education, Teach First is an organisation that places graduates at schools, so they kind of link you together in one sense, and then you are a member of staff there, and they provide support you in part of that training as part of that process. Great. Well, I can tell, and I know from working with you, you have it thoroughly enjoyed, and it's been a really good choice for you in terms of being part of St John's and part of this federation. So it's brilliant. Ross, over to you then. So, your involvement in Spirit, how's that?
So I joined Spirit back in 2018, assistant head at St John's. I was class teacher probably 7 years before that, and was very happy at my previous school. But I don't think there were the opportunities of leadership there that I wanted. And I remember coming for a tour here and going home and saying to my wife, I was blown away. All the forest schools and the sports mentoring, it felt like it was really forward-facing and on the front foot. I was at St John's for about 18 months before COVID. Post-COVID, moved across to Winyates as deputy head for about 2 years, and I'm just coming up to being head of school now for 2 years at Winyates.
So again, part of the federation, but you've started in one school, moved to another as part of that process. It might be interesting as we talk, actually, how this is part of being people-centred. So it'd be interesting to hear more of your story as we go through. And Connor, when I introduced you earlier, there's a whole raft of roles that you have. But tell us about, kind of how you've become part of this federation and your story.
So my journey started back in 2016. I completed my final university placement here at St John's in my third year, and happened during that time here. I was offered the job as an NQT for the upcoming September, and it sounds a bit cliche, but similar to Alice, that feeling within a couple of days of being here, the culture that was being provided at school, I knew this was a school for me. So then I spent the next 5 years working here as class teacher. Building up my leadership, I took on a role as Raising Standards leader, and then 4 years ago applied for the job at Barnock as assistant head, was given the job there, and has since taken on 1 day a week as acting head as well.
Brilliant. And it's interesting you've mentioned that word, the culture seemed to fit. So I guess this is something we're going to pull out. What is the culture of the Federation and how that kind of fuels it being people-centred? So, thank you for bringing our listeners up to speed just to get to know you a little bit as we explore it. So let's then look into this people-centred culture and how you create that. And something we talked about before we've kind of gone live on air is we really want our listeners to understand that we're not portraying Spirit as the absolute echelon of perfection. This is still a work in progress, but there are a number of things that you do that I think our listeners can really learn from, actually, whether they are in education or outside of education, how you have that kind of people-centred focus. So, Colette, tell us a little bit more about the Spirit Federation. How did it come about and what's its collective purpose? So you've given us a bit of an indicator in terms of people sort of saying, oh, Colette, could you take on another school? So I know that's the practicalities of how it's come about, but there's a difference between taking a school on and creating this federation with a collective purpose. So tell us a bit about how you've brought that together. What is the collective purpose of the federation?
I think for me, what I want to do is create a group of schools where children and people can thrive. So I'm really passionate about people doing their very best. And I believe that anybody can. So if you create the possibilities and create the opportunities, they will do it. So I think I have that really at my heart, that everybody deserves those opportunities. And it doesn't matter what walk of life you come from, really. If you're given an opportunity and you can accept it and go for it, then you can thrive. So I think that's really where we begin. And I think I just want to grow the reach of that. So, as a church school head, I believe in service, in doing service. I believe that we are kind of doing God's work, actually. And the more reach we have, the more children we can kind of get our hands on, the better life chances they actually will have. So I think I'm really passionate about that. But then I'm also passionate about the people that come, and if you create an opportunity for them, they will jump in it and they will have a good go at it. So when you find, Teach First or NQTs that kind of start with you, or they're teacher training with you, but you see something good in them, then you offer them a job. Even if you don't have a job, you offer them a job because you want to get them on board. And sometimes when we interviewed Ross, there were 3 people, I think, came for the interview. I think we took 2 of them. There was only 1 job. But you don't let good people go. So you make a job and you think, we can make something up for you. That's going to work. Because, I don't want to let good people go.
So what I'm hearing of your journey is actually it starts with children. You want them to have those opportunities. But it isn't just the children. You're looking at your staff as well. And interestingly, I heard somebody say on Friday, if we put our staff, you actually start with your children first. This person was saying if we put our staff first, if we invest in our staff, then actually it makes the difference to the children. So for you, is it just about people and opportunities, whether they are little people or whether they're grown-up people?
It doesn't matter. They're just people, and people to nurture and get them to thrive. And we all get a kick, I think, out of seeing people grow and become something, and
Yeah.
whether they are very little people. So I love it when I go into reception and you can see them developing and growing. And they, I remember some years ago, I said to the children in collective worship, what do you want out of this school? What do you want? And a little girl in reception said, well, I think every child by the end of reception should be able to read. And so we made that like a priority. Okay, that needs to happen in this school.
Yeah.
Every child needs to be able to read.
Yeah.
And I think that is wonderful, isn't it? To see a child who knows nothing of words really to grow and become readers. And it's the same with whatever anybody does.
Yeah.
They just grow and thrive,
Yeah.
and that's wonderful to see.
So your word thrive's come through several times,
Yeah.
and so it's been the words that struck me were opportunity, nurture,
Yeah.
and thrive.
Yeah.
And you want that for your children, but if you provide that for your staff, then that in turn will bring that for your children. So I think that's given our listeners quite an insight into what drives that. So opening up wider now to everyone else, you've heard what Colette said about opportunity, nurture, thrive. We're looking here at whether it's a people-centered culture. How much of people-centered culture do you experience as being part of this federation?
It was interesting you talking there about it's the same for whether it's little people or the big people, the staff or the children. I think it can be the same blueprint for everyone really. So we invest a lot of time and energy into our inner curriculum for our children. So it's Forest School, Thrive, making sure they're ready to access our curriculum, because almost until you get that right, curriculum could be as ambitious as you like, but they're not ready for it. And it's the same blueprint for the staff, isn't it? Because Colette had written on our previous planning book that teaching is rocket science. It is that complicated. So actually, if we get all those things right for the people, whether it's well-being, their professional development, whatever it might be, opportunities, then they are ready to go into the classroom and teach, where it is really challenging. So it's almost the same principles for both, I think.
So what I'm hearing there is you recognise in fact, all children need that inner work to help them access. And you recognise, actually, for us as adults, we might also need some inner work. And so that's been part of your focus as a federation. Yeah. Connor, what have you got to add to this?
Yeah, I think when we talk about the federation being people-centred, I think it's actually deeper rooted than that. I think across the federation, we have staff that are people-centred themselves. I think that we look for opportunities, whether it's through challenge or support, to really help develop people on a professional level, but personally as well. And I think we're always looking for those opportunities to support, lead and improve people, small and big people. And I think that's really at the heart of it, that we are one big team that all strives for the same shared purpose of giving children those opportunities to go on and thrive in the future.
And in order to do that, you have to equally help the adults to thrive. So the whole, in one sense, a key word for you guys as part of your federation, part of your culture is I'm picking up is this word thrive. You want people to thrive, and therefore, what do they need in order to thrive? Whether that's a reception child, that they need this help in themselves first to then be able to feel good about themselves in order to want to read, or whether it's actually an adult that actually needs a bit of help in this in order to feel confident in the classroom. Alice, what's your experience as a teacher working in this kind of culture? Do you see that?
Yeah, I mean, every day when I come in, it's never, I'll just go to my classroom and print my resources and do my marking on my own. Everyone will walk past each other's rooms, say, good morning, how are you? You look lovely today. Yeah. Always giving each other compliments. Oh, can I make you a tea? Can I make you a coffee? It really shows when you're just here day to day, everyone is happy. I think there's a constant collaboration with all four of our schools as well. It's not just, oh, you're the English team, so you just go off and do that. It's about kind of finding that passion, or giving people that outlet to find that passion, and then get to share that passion with other people in order to make teaching and learning better. Because once you are developing that passion yourself, you can then share that knowledge, and then that has an impact on the children.
Yeah. Great. So what I'm hearing there, which fits nicely with the Thrive, is part of helping your community to thrive, your children, but also your adults, is identifying in people what they can what they have that can bring. What you've alluded there is really the sense of finding out people's passionate purpose and seeing how they can bring that to the table across the 4 schools to help them to thrive. So what we're picking up is thrive's a key word. And actually it is, you're talking day to day, people really looking out for each other, which means a culture has been set. What are the kind of values that drive this? Any particular ones that...
Oh, well, I was thinking of wholeness. And again, that's one of our Christian values here at St John's. But I think we take that on across all our schools, that if we feel whole, if we think of the whole person, then we are ready, willing, we understand what we're going to do day in, day out. And I think wholeness is really, wholehearted and wholeness together, I think is a bit of a good combination for us, really.
Yeah. So wholeness, any others? Or do you disagree with Colette? Actually, is wholeness not? Or?
I was going to say belonging. I think a sense of belonging, part of the community here, and almost being invested in that yourself and that vision, and everyone coming together to drive towards that's definitely something that you feel across the 4 schools.
Yeah.
And there's a bedrock of trust there, I think, as well. I think we trust each other, that the only reason we're really here is to make each other better. We want the best for the children. We want the best for the adults. I think without that layer of trust underpinning it all, almost that's the starting block, isn't it?
Yeah. So wholeness, belonging, trust. Anything else to add, Alice, in terms of values that you see?
Yes. I think courage as well. I think one thing that this federation does amazingly is gives people the courage to put themselves out there and to develop new projects, because we feel like we're believed in. And I think that comes back to the sense of belonging and feeling safe. So if you feel safe enough to put your ideas out there, then kind of Colette gives you that opportunity to then branch out. But you have to have that courage in order to do that. You have to be able to say, I am terrified of doing that, but I'm going to do it, because in the long run it's going to make me a better person. I'm going to thrive from that.
And it's interesting, you talked about courage. Brené Brown talks about the link between vulnerability and courage, and what enables you to feel vulnerable, or to test out being vulnerable, is to feel safe. And you've alluded to that. I feel safe enough that I can put myself in this vulnerable position and be courageous, but it's creating the culture of safety kind of in the first place. So I guess my next question is, you've got these great values then of wholeness, belonging, trust, courage, and this sense where you really want your whole community to thrive. How much of this, though, has been purposeful, and how much of it has kind of sort of come about? Has this been accidental, or have you been really quite purposeful of this wholeness, belonging, trust, courage, creating this culture where people feel safe enough to experiment and then thrive?
I think we talk about it quite a lot, don't we? I think it comes up in heads meetings. I think we get together to put the purpose document together and unpick what our values are. I think these sorts of conversations we're having now happen, not on the podcast. They happen quite organically, don't they?
I think it's organic and purposeful. So I think we haven't just happened upon it.
Yeah.
But I think we allow it to grow.
Yeah.
So we're not constraining it or overthinking it. We're actually allowing it to grow and seeing where it will go. But one of the things I think Connor was saying earlier actually is I tend to only employ nice people. I genuinely, if people come on interview, if they're nice people, I think I can train you to be a great teacher, or I can train you to be a great leader. The important thing is you are a nice person. You're a good person. You want to do your best. You've got all these values.
Yeah.
You're going to buy into our purpose. You're kind of aligned with us.
You'll get us, and you're a good person.
Yeah.
You don't have a funny side, or you're not, tricky or awkward. Although you're a really nice, good person.
Yeah.
You can come and join our team, and we'll do that. And if you start with good people and you invest in them, then it just multiplies, doesn't it? That kind of good feeling, really.
So if we're unpicking some of this already for our listeners, there is a sense where you've been quite purposeful around, you want a community where children and adults can thrive. You have been purposeful in these are the things that will help that to happen. We need to create a safe space. We need to generate trust with people. There needs to be this sense where we're looking at the whole person. In working with you, that's something that strikes me as as you, Colette, as executive leader and as an organisation, you look at people as the whole. So when we've been doing coaching, it's coach the whole person.
Yeah.
So that's been really purposeful. But what I'm also picking up is that you're constantly talking about what does that look like. And then another key thing for anyone listening, thinking, well, how can I generate people-centered? It is about your recruitment.
Yeah.
It is about finding people that equally share that passion for people, that share that desire for wholeness in others.
Yeah.
So that you've got an alignment of that central purpose. So for anyone trying to think, well, how can I make people centered? It needs to be that drive right at the beginning that you see people as a whole. You haven't just got them as employees to do a job. It's actually, I want you to flourish. So I need to enable you to flourish as a whole and be purposeful about it.
And I wouldn't, sometimes people can have tricky times, can't they?
Yeah.
And that's okay in our schools, in life, really, because actually we want to help you through a tricky time, because then we know you're going to bring your best version to your job, to your life in school.
Yeah.
And so that's really important, that we help you navigate through life, because we want you to bring your best person every day.
Yeah.
And not just for the little children. Actually, we want you to bring your best version to staff meetings, or to, the coffee or break time, or all those things.
Yeah.
I want people that kind of come to work and say, hey, you look fabulous today, or that is a fabulous pair of shoes, or whatever it is, they are feeling confident and good about themselves, that they can give other people compliments and just be their best.
So you're not
versions.
after employing people who are perfect.
No.
But they do need to have that desire within them
Yeah.
to look for others, to help wholeness.
Yeah.
We had a nice moment on the ECT induction day we did, where the heads were standing up and they were talking about their stories and where they'd started. And there was one of the ECTs that turned up for a job to work in the office. And then we really liked her, so we gave her a job as, I think, as a TA, and now she's doing a teacher training, just because you think, okay, you're a great person, you'll fit really well here.
Yeah.
And I said to her afterwards, well, maybe one day it'll be you stood at the front in 10 years' time, head of school, and you can tell the story that I only turned up to work in the office, and now I've been a teacher, I've been assistant head, and now I'm head of school somewhere, and because you see the right things in people.
Yeah, and so we saw that she would absolutely be great with children.
Yeah.
She's a really kind of kind and very gentle, and she totally got where we were coming from.
We can teach you to be a teacher, that's not a problem.
we can do that. Yeah.
And this fits in nicely. Some of the, again, bit of the conversation we had off camera was just around investors in people.
Yeah.
So investors in people have a series of, a cog that shows if you've got these elements in, this will help you invest in your people to bring the best for them and the best for your organisation. And so one of its 9 areas was living the values. And so that's what we're kind of pulling out here, isn't it? That actually it's these values you want to see those kind of lived out. So Ross, how much is living the values key from everybody to make it a people?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think
organisation?
so. We've got our own purpose document, and I was looking at it again last week, doing a bit of work for our leadership course. And on there's just the most amazing kind of huge ambitious dreams we've got for all the schools, that we want to be top 5% nationally. We want everyone to be winning the UNESCO Inclusion Award. We want to be at the forefront of national training. And then alongside it is all our values of love and trust and courage and things we've talked about. And almost without all those values and living them each day, these dreams aren't quite possible. And there's a nice quote in our vision statement. I'll read it because I don't want to get it wrong. It says, as a high performing group, we're committed to providing opportunities for staff to be part of something bigger. And I think that sums us up. So I talked to a lot of staff last term about the culture in schools, and the overriding theme was that they work really, really hard. They almost going above and beyond, and we need that goodwill, but they feel like they get so much back in return that it's worth it. And I think those values just underpin everything we're doing, and that culture becomes contagious, doesn't it?
So because they feel they belong, because they feel that they're safe, because they're given opportunities to be vulnerable and courageous, it offsets it more than offsets all of the hard work that actually you have to put in.
They're
and
giving so much themselves,
Yeah.
but getting so much back in return.
Yeah.
I think, like Connor said, with personally developing yourself and professionally, that it is worth it. You're part of something bigger.
So we're hearing that offsets it. Opening it a bit wider, are there any kind of tension with these values, or because sometimes values can be in tension with each other, and sometimes the values are really hard, and there's that kind of tension, or is it absolutely just as Ross has pictured there? Do you know what? I'll take all this hard work from teaching because I'm loved here and I belong and I'm given opportunities, and therefore I'll accept all the pain. Is that what it is? Or
Most
are there
of the time.
difficulties?
I think the only kind of tension that I would say is if you're a newer teacher coming in with all of these amazing people, amazing leadership, amazing teachers, amazing just leadership everywhere, SLT, you compare yourself. And I think you then feel like, oh, do I belong because I'm comparing myself to those people who are amazing? But what I do think that the Spirit Federation has done has then thought about that and thought, do you know what? Just because you're in, this second year of your career, you're not going to be where SLT are at the moment, but you will get there. And I think because they share their vulnerability with the newer teachers or people who might compare themselves, it kind of makes, if you're all comparing yourself, it makes you believe, oh, actually, I will be like them one day. And then because you get those opportunities, you do kind of get more knowledge and skills, and then you are more like those amazing people around you.
So what I'm hearing there is actually an outworking of some of those values you've just talked about. So there is that safety and vulnerability that they then model to you by sharing a bit of their journey and reassuring you that you're comparing yourself to that, but actually we were there once too, and this is your trajectory. It'll be okay because we've been there. So I'm hearing some of those values being really modelled to you.
Yeah.
Any tension in values, Connor?
I was going to say that I think that we consciously have to consider, as leaders across school, the idea of these values underpinning everything we do, at the same time as trying to really extend ourselves and push for the highest standards that we can possibly get. So I think that we have to really consider how we ensure that environment is safe. We see that vulnerability between us, which allows others to feel that way. And actually, we look at how almost we balance that in the fact that we do want to achieve the best academic results, allow our children to go and succeed at secondary school, whilst not losing that sense of belonging and trust.
There's the dial on the continuum,
Yeah, I mean, in one sense, what you're putting out is the tension in some ways for things like courage, because actually, and vulnerability, we need to create the safe space, but actually sometimes we've got to be held to account to push things up. So what you're telling me here is it's not all sweet and cuddly and cozy, and there are some high challenge elements to what goes on. Yeah.
I think we've talked, haven't we, that you've got to be able to argue well too. So almost if things, you've got to be held account, and people have got to have those opportunities to come and disagree and, fall out about things, but know that that's okay because that's part of us growing as people, and we've got to have the courage to do that. And I think that is a bit of a tension sometimes for us to really promote that, because sometimes it can come across as being a bit, like we are all getting on great and it is lovely and it is wonderful, but people need to feel like they can challenge and they can disagree with us, and that's okay.
Yeah, which is good.
Because Ross and I had a falling out about something, and actually, I'm not going to share the whole
did,
thing.
yeah.
But it was okay because we were grown ups about it mostly, and it may have lasted 2-3 days, and people feel a bit uncomfortable and awkward. But actually, everyone's allowed to feel like that. I'm allowed to be upset and get grumpy about something. You're allowed to then not accept that and think, no, that's not right. And those things are okay because you'll come back together and think, it's okay to be like that.
And also then I think post falling out, you understand each other a lot better, don't you? And you can see it from the other person's point of view, and feels like you get to a better place afterwards, I think.
So what I'm hearing again here, if we're thinking for our listeners, what does this kind of people-centered look like? I'm hearing authenticity. You can be authentic with each other. You can be real. You can have those disagreements. I'm hearing also about a sense of learning and reflection afterwards, actually. So it's okay to be having those disagreements, to be authentic, but probably what's not okay is to, if you're not people-centered, is you keep that angst with each other. That's not okay. And actually, what do we learn from this then? And then that case of, as you've processed it, it's that listening to each other. What's the learning from this? How do we make this better? That's what I'm picking up from even that example, that it isn't always perfect.
No, it's complex and it's hard work, isn't it? We're all human and you have emotional responses and make mistakes all the time. But like you say, it's then being able to have that conversation and talk it out and figure it out and come out the other side a bit stronger, I think.
And 9 times out of 10, inevitably, from your perspective, you're doing it for the same reasons. You both want the same outcomes at the end of the day. And it's being able to see that from the other person's perspective.
And do you remember, Connor, we were talking some years ago, the SATs results had just come out, and I think we were like 74% instead of 80-something we might have wanted to be. And or even it was just 2 children maybe. Yeah. And literally we would got into this little rant about this girl who'd got really significant needs, missing out by 2 marks. She'd done so well. It was incredible. And then we had to give ourselves a reality check. You know, like, come on. This is, you know, we shouldn't really be ranting about this. We shouldn't really be, you know. But I think we were all able to do that and you know, sat in the leadership office and we're having a bit of a kind of a to-ing and fro-ing and ranting about this, that and the other. But at the end of it, we just, let's have a reality check. What's all this about? It was just because we get ourselves so
and we all wanted
ambitious.
This. Yeah, yes. We all wanted the best for everyone.
So I believe there are 4 core emotional needs. There might, some expert probably might come up with more, but I think people need to be known. They need to feel that they are loved. They need to feel they belong, and they need to feel they've got a sense of purpose. And it's interesting, in the conversation already, we picked up a couple of these strands. And I think if we're going to be people-centered organisations, we must have those at the core of kind of what we do. And you've alluded to a couple, but Colette, do any of these 4 elements really form part of what you do at Spirit? Are there any as you look at there and you go, yeah, that's definitely a focus, or have you got another one you think is more important?
No, I think all of them are really important. And I think to be known is so important, I think, and to feel valued, but also to feel loved, to genuinely feel loved. Yeah. Like, this is somewhere you belong in our group of schools. And interestingly, almost when we took over Paston, that's what people think. It's a takeover. It's, you know, they're coming in to tell us what to do. But you want them quite quickly to feel like they belong, that they're loved and they're known. So you have to invest in that. So you have to go do the walk in the morning. You have to go sit in people's classrooms. Yeah. You have to get to know them. Yeah. And not because you have to, because you want to. And you know that if that happens and they feel loved and known and they belong, then you will get the best out of them. But they will get the best out of themselves. Yeah. And I think they may, you know, if you talk to, we didn't get anyone from Paston, but if you spoke to them, they will say now, when they met all our other staff, when they first came on the scene, they thought, they were amazed. Like, people were laughing, and joking, and they got on so well, and that surprised them. And then they thought, oh yeah, we do want to be part of something like that, really. So for you guys, any of these in terms of being known and loved and belong, I mean, does any of that, is that an important part of being people-centred that you see in this federation?
I've personally never felt really understood and really known in any other company that I've worked. Even when I went to university, my friends, for example, I don't know, like, I just never really felt like I could be my authentic self. And I would say the last year I have really come out of my shell and I am a bit silly, a bit goofy, and I get embarrassed about that sometimes. And actually with this group of people, they embrace it. So then I feel loved, and then everyone feels like they belong. And I was saying to these guys, actually, it's funny to see people first start here and they might come in with their kind of head down, they're a bit nervous. And I said, if you give them 4 weeks, they'll be like, hiya, like they'll be really kind of happy to see you, asking you questions, answering your questions. And yeah, it's lovely.
So if I might probe a little further on that one then, Alice, what is it that people do, either the leadership or your peers do, to enable you to feel known and loved more than any other space you've been to?
I think it is just that place for vulnerability. I have never felt like I can't go to SLT and say, I'm really struggling with this, because I know they won't then go behind my back and be like, oh, she's terrible at that. They will then think, okay, how can we help you with that? How can we develop you with that? Because no one's perfect at everything, as these guys said. So it's about recognizing your own weaknesses, being able to speak out and say, okay, I think I need a bit of help with this. And then because we have such a culture of belonging, there will probably be at least 10 people who are experts in that field that SLT can then say, you know, if you go and sit with them or they can help you with that, you're going to feel better. I think listening as well, just asking me how my weekend was, or, you know, as you were saying, getting to know people on a personal level, that's when people start to feel safe.
So it's the real simple things then of just listening to people, being genuinely interested. Those simple things have helped you to feel actually you kind of like me as a human and as I am, and that allows you then to risk that vulnerability then with, like in the case of leaders, to say, I'm struggling with this, can you help me? But it all starts from just that interest in people and listening.
And them giving you opportunities. If you're given an opportunity, but you feel like, oh, but I won't be good at that, then the fact that someone else has said, no, you can do that, we believe in you, you then start to believe in yourself.
And almost it goes back to what we were talking about recruitment earlier, doesn't it? That if we're bringing in good people, the right people, it's the authentic moments you were talking about, that we're not thinking, oh, I better go and check in with Alice and see if she's okay. You genuinely want to go and see, how's she doing this morning? Oh, we know, we'll help her kind of with that, because you genuinely want her to do well. You're just surrounded by the right people and it all fits together.
So both of you two have leadership roles. I mean, all of you here at different levels have leadership roles. But how much then is being known and loved and belonging purposeful around the way you operate leadership? How much is it? I mean, you're talking naturally about, I'm really interested in Alice and others. I'm asking for genuine. But how much of this being known and loved and belonging is a real driver for leadership in the Federation? Or is it just because Colette's employed nice people, so it naturally happens?
I think I generally want to go and have those moments. So I think that's probably part of, my purpose, what I enjoy doing, which is having those moments and connecting with people. So I think it does happen naturally. But I think because we talk about it quite a bit, you see the benefits of it as well. So I think it is purposeful. I think what's interesting, going back to trying to not paint the picture of it all being perfect, I wondered actually whether, I think we were talking about something similar, but I think I do a fairly good job of getting out and have all those little moments with people. But I wondered if I wrote down all the names of the staff at Winyates and tallied up how many different authentic moments I'm having with different members of staff, I wonder what that would look like, whether I think I've got a pretty good, coverage on anyone, or actually, Alice gets 10, authentic moments, and actually someone only gets 1 because, I think that would be interesting to have a look at.
So it's not perfectly deliberate, but there is a passion.
Yeah.
Connor, your insight on this one?
Yeah, so I feel the driver for me is almost a repayment in some elements. I feel that the trust, faith that was put into me over the years, in terms of my personal development, and as Alice alluded to, I think that sometimes there's an element of it's more powerful someone else putting their trust in you than your own self-belief, because someone who knows what they're talking about, is extremely knowledgeable, believes in you, and almost that's helped me throughout my career to get where I am. And I feel I'm now at a point in leadership where I want to be the one doing that for other people. I want to then think, Connor's really built me up here. I feel really confident with that. I can do this. So I feel that element of known and loved is at the heart of what I do.
So is it for you then, it's almost a sense of paying it forward? Someone's done that for you and
Yeah,
invested in you, and you then want to invest in others?
And I saw the power and the value in that, and I almost want to have that impact as a leader myself.
Yeah, great. It's interesting, some of the stuff we've talked about here, seeing stuff in people and encouraging them in it, links to, for me, again, something that's quite people-centered is this engagement in purpose. So one of my favourite authors, Patrick Lencioni, I may have mentioned this to you guys before, I think in some of the training we've done. In his book, The Truth About Employee Engagement, he says there are 3 key things: known by the boss, know their purpose and how it fits the organisations, and know when they're successful. And, that was, again, one of the 4 core things that I think is important. We need to be loved, we need to kind of be known and feel that we belong, but then we need to have something that we feel we're contributing. So how important is discovering, I mean, you've alluded to it a couple of times, but how important is this discovering purpose at Spirit?
I think one of the main things that almost we align to create these shared purposes on a school level and then on a federation level as well. I think that each year, throughout the year, but actually at the beginning of each year, we create opportunity during our teacher training days to reflect on the last year, to look at our shared purpose, revisit and think, actually, is that still what we want? And actually, as a team, we all have a voice in that. So that is not just SLT sat in their office ticking off the purpose document. It's our school teams having a voice in where we want to go next.
So that's great. In people-centered, you are involving them in shaping the organisation purpose. How much about bringing individuals' purpose into that? So Lencioni's key thing is, like, this is our organisation purpose. If you know how you fit and what you contribute to that, then that engages you, because, like, I am making a difference to this. So how much is that purposeful? Colette, is there anything that...
Well, I think this year's training days, people did different things. So at Paston, they talked about what's your why. Why are you here? What is it that you are going to be getting out of it? Here we looked at courage, and you looked at high performing teams, and what are you bringing to those teams? And then at Barnet we looked at the challenge and that kind of setting the standard for things, and how do you bring that? So I think there is always a sense of what you bring to it and what is your purpose. And I think we are very good through things like performance management or different types of reviews, checking in with you. Is your purpose? Are you getting something out of it?
Yeah.
Because unless you get something out of it, then you're this isn't the right place really. Because there's a whole rhetoric at the moment, isn't there, about kind of we were talking about 9-day fortnights and people doing PPA from home and kind of that work-life balance. This is a really big thing in our kind of industry at the moment, and I think, but there's a deeper issue here is, if you don't feel like you are doing something, the good work, the deep work, then you don't have a good work-life balance. You're prepared to, work a bit harder or make that work part of your life a bit more because you're doing good work, deep work, and that is your purpose. So I think there's something around having that kind of an understanding for an individual, what is their purpose?
And checking in with them that they're feeling they're working that out.
And that's about the well-being. That's about work-life balance.
Yeah.
Because I think work-life balance in itself is a strange word, isn't it? Work-life balance. Who has that really?
And it's not static. It's constantly changing.
Yeah.
But actually, if you know that actually what I'm contributing is making a difference, that helps you actually with some of the movements that you get with work-life balance. It's not static. It'll keep moving. One minute you're feeling this, next feeling this. But if you know you're working your purpose out, you'll have more energy to cope with those flexes.
Because it's all just life, isn't it? What's the difference between our work and our normal life, as it were? It's just life, and you want to live your life, and we're here more than we're not here.
Yeah.
So this has got to be your life. You've got to love your life, find joy in your life here in the building, wherever it is, because you're here more than you are at home sometimes, awake.
So I'm hearing part of being people-centered is checking in regularly. Are you feeling that you're able to live out purpose? Is that what you guys experience?
Yeah, I think so. I think like the professional developmental opportunities we get as well. You know, the head teacher here sent me some MPQs and said, "Oh, which one would you be interested in?" And so it's showing, you know, look at all of these things that you can be learning about. Which one interests you? And then I'm like, "Oh, I really want to do that one. Okay, I'll set myself up on that." And then through those kind of developmental opportunities, you then start to see, okay, where do I want to go with my career? Where am I really focused on? What am I passionate about? And then you're living your purpose.
Yeah. What's lovely there, Alice, without you realising, you've moved it on to the next bit I wanted to explore, which is brilliant. It's almost as if it was scripted. But to kind of how we develop capacity. So again, going back to investors in people, their element 7 is that building capacity in people. So you've given some examples there about where your purpose has been aligned with those opportunities you could take, and by you taking those, it's building capacity for the organisation and also for you. Ross, I know that you alluded to it earlier, been involved in kind of developing a bit of this kind of people strategy. So what's your approach to personal and professional development, both your approach, but also the kind of federation's approach for this building capacity? Alice has just alluded to having those opportunities, but what's the plan? What's the without you perhaps disclosing deep secrets there, because not everyone's a Nick, but what is the people plan for that building capacity?
It's really interesting hearing the conversations and hearing Alice talk about it, and almost I think, I could talk about succession planning and talent management and personalized CPD and things like that, but I think true leadership is, or what I really enjoy, is helping people find their purpose and then working alongside them for them to pursue it. And almost, I think I've got to a point now, this might sound a bit odd, where I quite enjoy those, what might have been previously quite difficult conversations with people where, you know, you can see, you can spot talent in someone and you think, oh, do you know what, in 5-10 years, I can see you here. And actually, having that slightly difficult conversation that is, look, you are very talented. I can see you. You're going to be a great maths lead. You're going to be a future assistant head. What I want you to do is do more of this, but you need to be really careful not letting this overplay or not doing this too much. And sometimes I'll script it and it'll go really well. Other times it might just be in the moment. But I think probably those moments are very powerful where you're having those really, and again, I think hopefully most people at Winyates especially will trust that I'm having those conversations for the right reason, but having those moments where you really have a deep, meaningful conversation with someone where, look, I can see this in your future. I think you need to do a bit more of this. Don't let this overplay. And this is where you could be in 5-10 years time is powerful.
But
Yeah, do chip in.
well, because almost then that is that belief, isn't it? That is, I see your talent, I know you, I'm going to have a tricky conversation with you because I want the best for you. And that's what we all try and do is, you know...
I love you to bits, but I'm going to tell you the honest truth.
Because...
we're going to have the conversation and then I'm going to help you map out, here's some opportunities, you know. If you want them, they're there for you.
I was going to just ask Alice almost, do you feel like, although we enrich your career, your work, do you feel like it's had a positive impact on your personal life, your life?
Yes. Sorry. Yes, I absolutely do, because it is that confidence thing and believing in yourself. And I think, I don't know, just in my personal life, the way I interact with people now, the way I believe in myself, so I just interact completely differently to how I used to. I used to be kind of shoulders like this, head down. And now I feel confident going into a room of leaders and being able to say what I want to say, because I feel...
You've got something to say.
Yeah, exactly.
So it is interesting, isn't it? It's identifying in somebody what you see as their potential, offering that challenge to them where you could see them going, holding the difficult bits as well. This might be your barrier. These are the bits to watch out for. You don't overplay, but then supporting them. So, we love you to bits, and we need to give you this difficult messages alongside that sometimes to help you grow. This is what's holding you back, and it's holding that conversation. And there's a power, if we're looking at what is a people-centered organisation, in in seeing that in someone and calling that in someone, and that's what helps to build the capacity. You can have all the planning, but it is about noting that and that personal relationship to be able to call that in someone. And for you, Alice, your journey has been one that it's personally developed you as well as professionally developed you as part of that process.
And selfish as a leader, there's a lot of fulfillment in those moments as well. So when you see someone go from point A to point B, and think, wow, I walked into Alice's classroom last week, it's just commanding the whole space, and always think, I'd like to be in this classroom. This is just wonderful. And it's great.
Yeah, to be able to see that come to fruition, isn't it? But it all starts then.
And I've had nothing to do with her. That's
yeah, you've just gone in and enjoyed it. Yeah. But in order to develop capacity in people, actually, you can have all the great planning, but it goes back to the bits we talked about earlier on, is knowing people, building that safe space to have those honest conversations in where you could see them going, but what they need help with. So there is that vulnerability in it, but it's that power of having that conversation as part of that process.
And I think we are so ambitious, we need masses of capacity. So almost there is no limit to our ideas about staff.
Yeah.
So we're always thinking of, this would make a real difference, or this little kind of tiny thing is going to add, this and this. Right, who's going to do that? And so we're always looking for capacity to take us on to that kind of next level, is really, I think.
And the building capacity starts with knowing the people. Yeah. So you've got your ideas, but because we know the people, we could see who fit that and fits that. And because we see what they need to get there, we'll provide them with that. Whether that goes back again to what you were saying right early on, if it's the emotional support they need, then we'll bring that in. If it's practical knowledge support to do a particular job, we'll bring that in.
Yeah.
But it's seeing them, knowing where they're at, and helping them with that journey. But it all starts from that premise again of knowing the person.
Yeah, and I think that's what actually, as the Federation, we do really well in terms of identifying the right people to provide that support. So knowing who's going to be the best person to give them that knowledge, to give them the emotional support, that coaching. So we have those ITPs and coaches who are the right people. We don't just pick them because they're the people, the leaders in that school. We think across the 4 schools, who's going to be the best person to help guide that individual.
And for those who don't know the TLA of an ITP, what is an ITP for our listeners?
So your individual teacher plan, and it's for you to help you set your targets of where you want, what you want to achieve for that year, and then you have a coach who sits for 10-15 minutes with you, runs through those with you, and helps you action plan what that might look like throughout the year.
What I love about what you've just dropped in there, Connor, is, again, if you're looking at building capacity, you're empowering the person to see, this is the capacity I want to get to as well. So actually, it's not you. We've talked about, I see in you, this is what you could be, but what you're also talking about there is someone that will coach you for you to drive your capacity as well. And again, if we're looking at people-centered, that power of coaching to draw that out from people so they own it rather than they're being given it is another key part.
Well,
now, Colette, say what you want to say. Time is flying in the Leadership Lounge when we have fun. So there's one little bit I want to touch on and then do top tips. But what were you going to chip in with there?
Well, I was just going to say that before this, we were talking about praise, and actually we were saying that it's probably not my greatest gift. So I'm not brilliant at telling people that they're doing really well. I just expect them to kind of see that they're doing really well. And so I have to really work hard at that praise. But Alice and I were having a conversation, and I was saying, but why do you need me to tell you how good you are or that you're doing well? And you were saying, well, I don't really, but I like it, almost you feel empowered.
Yeah.
I'll let you say it, but
it motivates me, and I think it would do other people actually. It doesn't mean that you need that in order to know that you're doing a good job, but to have that kind of reinforcement of, oh, actually, Colette noticed that. And then honestly, that will stay with a lot of teachers, I think. And then it gives you that motivation to think, okay, what's next? How can I improve now? Because I've got that in the bag. What can I do then?
I think praise is important, and I think what you're putting out there are 2 aspects of praise that we've kind of touched on. When you praise someone, you're known. Yeah. So if I'm praising you, Alice, you have that sense that you are known by me. So it ticks that box. Also, when you're praising someone, it's helping you have feedback on what you're doing well, which again fits with Lencioni's stuff. So I think that's why praise is powerful, particularly when praise is quite specific. If you have what I call it, for those who are old enough to remember, Are You Being Served? A Mr. Grace, well done everybody. And this is an old man that would just go around and say, well done everybody. That's praising them, but actually it's quite meaningless because they don't know what they're being praised for. But if you get specific praise, Alice, I really want to say, when you did this in your classroom, that was so good because this was the impact. Thank you so much. It really fits what we're doing as a school. That specific praise. And then you create, again, what I talk about, meerkat moments. People will turn like a meerkat to where is the noise. So actually, if I'm being praised for something, that's why I get the focus. So I think that's possibly where praise is and why that's important. Anyway, time flies on the leadership lab. I've got one other last question, and then I'm going to ask you for your top tips. We normally have 3 top tips from our guest, but we've got 4 guests, so I'm only going to give you 1 top tip each, and then we'll end up with 4 for our listeners. But before we do that, we've talked a lot about how we develop people, how we develop capacity, and we've alluded, well, more than alluded, Colette, you've said actually we do want to be the best. Ross, you said the same. We've got these targets about being the best. But I'm just wondering, how is it you get that blend right between looking after the people but aspiring? So I guess I want to hear from one of you 2 guys around where's the leadership drive to get that balance, but also maybe from you guys around what's your experience of that balance. So yeah, how do you get that balance right of driving standards up but yet still looking after people? Or is it work in progress?
It probably is a work in progress, and something that, like we said earlier, is on that continuum and probably isn't always exactly where we want it to be. So we look at it. I think, so if I think about Winyates, if you've got that bedrock of trust and that shared purpose of why we're doing it, it gives you a platform to push standards. And I don't mean just standards that's, key stage 2 academic results, but everything, because I think it gives people something to buy into as well. So I want Winyates to have the most polite children. I want our reception unit to be the best. Also, our reception teachers are fully bought into that, and that's their purpose driving it forward. I want our phonics, to be better than anyone else's. So my phonics lead's driving that. So I think as long as you've got that bedrock of trust that people understand why you're doing it, it gives you capacity to push it. And I think that also feeds into that shared purpose of why we're doing it. But I also think probably don't always get it right, and sometimes you think, oh, we pushed really hard there and we need to get everyone in and talk about it.
Yeah.
Actually,
or
don't
we've
worry.
pushed too hard. Or let's just back off a little bit.
We didn't get 82%, it was 76%.
Yeah.
That's not a disaster.
No.
We would have loved it, but worse things could happen.
So what I'm picking out there, and it links to something Connor said earlier, is you get an agreed purpose. If you've got that agreed purpose, and you kind of talked about, actually, it isn't just the leadership telling people, this is your purpose, agreed purpose. You agree that together, then people will get the buy-in for when you're saying, look, we said we were going to do this, so how do you contribute it? So the driving of the high standards has everyone's agreement because you've agreed on the core purpose. And as you said, you might not get it right all the time. Sometimes you push too hard. Sometimes you think, actually, we need to push harder. But people buy into it more because there's that agreed purpose. Yeah. Anything else to add from you guys, or does that sum up what your experience is on?
Well, go on, Alice, you had something to add to that.
Yeah, it's good. I think part of being a leader is actually finding ways to raise standards, but also help with the work-life balance. So, for example, if you're looking at geography, if I'm looking at I'm just going to use this as an example. If I'm looking at year 5's learning journey and I'm looking at what they're planning out for geography from the skills and knowledge map we've given them, and I'm thinking, I'm not sure those lessons are going to be great, then my kind of role as geography lead is to think, okay, how am I going to help them? Because I don't want to just message them saying, that's not working. Can you relook at that? Yeah. And actually, me and Abby went through and we did kind of give specific lesson ideas for each lesson. And actually, I think if we did that kind of federation wide, and we keep doing that, and I think we do that, to be honest, then you're actually helping people. And I think as a teacher, it's important to remember that you are going to have times where you feel overwhelmed and you feel like there's lots to do, and there's also weeks where you feel like really on top of it. And I do think that is going to be the same in any job you do, and it's just about how you manage that emotionally as well, which isn't all on, it's not all on leadership. I think sometimes we have to look at from within and how we're looking after ourselves.
But the key thing I'm pulling out from what you've just said there is, yeah, we agree the purpose, but you've also talked as leaders, you come in and you help. If you want to drive standards up, sometimes that is about you come in and help, and you've given the example there in terms of planning. You can't just say that's not good enough and expect them to sort it. You then come in and model that and help them and work alongside them. So that's your experience in you in leading, but you've also alluded to the fact that you also get that as well from your wider leaders.
And because we've got so many experts in every field, we're always pulling together, we're always collaborating, like, okay, you go and work with that person, and then it produces great work.
So standards are driven up, agreeing that purpose, but also as leaders, giving that clarity, but that also means sometimes just coming alongside and helping them as part of that process.
Because even if you take personal responsibility, which is really important that people do take that, but because that's where real growth comes for yourself, it's better, it's easier to take personal responsibility if you're side by side with somebody. You feel confident, you feel like that's okay because you're side by side with somebody, because it's a scary step taking personal responsibility for something. That's a big deal when you have to own it yourself. So if you're alongside somebody, I think that is better, really.
And so in some ways we've done some circle on this around creating that safer space, partnering and working alongside to make people feel safer to be vulnerable in that moment. Great. Time flies in the Leadership Lounge. I did say to you it'll fly, and you almost will forget the cameras have been here. But we've come to the top tip section. So really this is to try and help our listeners think, if we're going to create this kind of people-centred organisation, what's the top tip? And say normally if it's one guest, they're allowed 3, but I'm just going to give you 1 each to kind of say what's your top tip. And Connor, I'm going to start with you and work your way around this side of the table. So, you probably need 2 just in case Connor does steal yours. Really. Connor, what's your top tip?
So I think based on what I discussed earlier about where I am in terms of my leadership journey now, I think for me that top tip around this people-centered culture is that element of trust and the power that you get from empowerment in people and helping to grow their confidence and self-belief, and then the journey that can take them on.
So there's a real focus. If you focus on that, this is your top tip. Focus on generating that trust by investing in people.
Absolutely.
And you talked earlier about like paying it forward. I've had this, so I'm going to do the same. If you've got that focus on that trust and developing that with people, that's going to really help you to create this people-centered. Yeah? Ross, has he nicked yours? Have you got
It's not, luckily.
Excellent, good. What's your top tip?
So I think on one of the leadership courses I went on with Colette, she told everyone to go and watch Ted Lasso, which is basically the best leadership training you'll ever get. And there's a quote in it.
From mine, of course.
Second best. Second best leadership.
TV gold, that was.
There's a quote in it that he used that says, be curious, not judgmental. And I think when I'm at my absolute best, I'm curious, not judgmental.
Lovely.
When I'm tired and struggling, I can edge over to be a bit more. And I kind of remember that quote and think, actually, no, let's go and, unpick what's going on.
I love that. Curiosity is key. It didn't kill the cat. In fact, it's a key part of coaching people, which is a leadership skill. So I love that. Be curious. Yeah. Alice, have they nicked yours? Have you?
No, but there's like 3 little elements to mine. But it is one. It's one. So it's make people feel worthy, help people find what they're passionate about, and then give them a platform to share that passion.
Lovely. Can you repeat that for us? Because I think this
It was good.
Did you not have it written down then?
No. Was I looking down?
It looked like it, yeah.
Am I actually going to do it again?
Go on.
So make people feel worthy. Give people... No, can I say it again?
Yeah, you can.
Make people feel worthy. Help people to find their passion and give them a platform to share that passion.
That's beautiful. That's lovely. Thank you. And thank you for repeating it for us.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Colette, have they nicked yours?
Nope.
Good.
I think it links really is about creating something that people want to belong to. And so whether that is a wonderful kind of wonderfully decorated place or a lovely staff room, or whether it's the culture, or you've collected all these people together, you've created an environment, you've created something that people want to belong to. And I think, that's the bit I really enjoy. So a friend of mine says, "Oh, you're such a collector of people." So one of the speakers I had speaking at a conference, I'd met at a funeral, and I was chatting along to them, and I said, "Could you come and speak at one of our conferences?" Because I like to collect people who are interesting, who've got something to add to it. And I think that would be my top tip: is create something, make something that people want to belong to.
And again, that brings us nice circle again, doesn't it? Right back to the beginning of what was Spirit all about, that you wanted children and adults to thrive. And therefore you've gathered people around that share that common sense of purpose for you. So that's why Spirit has that, because that's what they want to be doing. It's attractive to them. So that's lovely. Thank you for bringing that element full circle for us.
You can come and be goofy, you see, because that's allowed.
Like that.
We like that.
Yeah, because it's contributing to actually what you want to achieve. Thank you ever so much for allowing me to host the Leadership Lounge in your space, and it's been brilliant just to explore and chat through further with you. I hope it's been useful for you as well, both thinking about it beforehand, but also in our session today around this people-centred organisation. And thank you for sharing your thoughts on how you're generating that to kind of help our listeners. So thank you for being part of the Leadership Lounge.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's been
Thank
great.
you. And thank you for those who've joined us. We hope you've enjoyed this month's, and we look forward to you joining us again next month.